Telara Voss stood rigidly before the High Council of Celidia, her iridescent skin reflecting the pale blue light of the chamber. She fought to keep her expression neutral as Elder Nimvar delivered what was disguised as an honor, but was, in reality, a humiliation. "You will serve as our ambassador to the humans," the Elder announced, her voice carrying the melodic trills characteristic of their species. "To solidify our diplomatic relations, you will participate in their custom of marriage with one of their military leaders." The chamber filled with subtle, rippling movements, the Celidian equivalent of suppressed laughter. Everyone understood the true nature of this assignment. Humans were considered barely evolved primates who had stumbled upon interstellar travel through luck rather than intellect. The marriage was a mockery, a political joke that maintained appearances while secretly reinforcing Celidian superiority. "I am to be a joke bride," Telara stated flatly, her inner eyelids blinking in distress despite her control. Elder Nimvar's tendrils curled in amusement. "You are to be an ambassador, child. If humans choose to interpret your presence according to their primitive customs, that is their misfortune. Your genetic lineage makes you expendable enough for this assignment, yet connected enough to make it appear significant." The subtle reminder of her lower status within the noble houses stung. Telara was the product of a politically inconvenient union, highborn enough to serve as a representative, but not valuable enough to keep among them. "Who is this human I am to?" "Mary," she forced the foreign word through her translator. A holographic image materialized in the center of the chamber, a human male in a military uniform. Commander James Hawthorne of the Terran Defense Force, recently appointed as humanity's liaison to the Celidian Consortium. Their council selected him. Apparently he is considered intelligent by their standards, another elder remarked, triggering another wave of subtle, disdainful movements. Telara studied the image. The human appeared unremarkable, flat skin lacking the bioluminescent patterns of her people, coarse hair on the head, and a sturdy build that spoke of a gravity-heavy world. His eyes, however, held something she couldn't quite interpret. "The ceremony will take place on their orbital station in 14 cycles," Elder Nimvar continued. "You will maintain this arrangement for one standard rotation, gathering intelligence on their military capabilities and weaknesses. Consider this an opportunity to serve Celidia despite your heritage limitations." That night, as Telara packed her ceremonial garments and diplomatic tools, her companion Illyri entered her chambers. "They're sending you to mate with a primitive," Illyri said, her tendrils drooping in sympathy. "It's cruel even for the council." "It's not actual mating," Telara corrected, her voice sharp. "It's a diplomatic farce. The human probably understands this as well as we do." "And if he doesn't?" Illyri asked. "Humans are known to be emotional. What if he believes it's genuine?" Telara paused, considering the possibility. "Then he is even more foolish than our council believes. Either way, I'll endure one rotation among them. Then I'll return and life will continue." As her transport departed Celidia 3 days later, Telara watched her crystalline homeworld recede into the starfield. She had studied the human marriage customs extensively during the journey, a primitive bond based on nebulous concepts of affection rather than proper genetic compatibility or political advantage. Commander James Hawthorne waited on the other side of her journey, an unknowing participant in a cosmic joke. Telara straightened her posture, reminding herself that this was merely a temporary indignity. One rotation among humans, playing the role of wife to a member of an inferior species. She would endure, she would return, and this uncomfortable chapter would be forgotten. Telara's first meeting with Commander James Hawthorne defied all her expectations. The docking bay of Harmony Station was crowded with both humans and representatives from various galactic species when she arrived. She had anticipated a spectacle. Her people certainly would have made one of such an arrangement, but instead found only a small, welcoming party. Commander Hawthorne stepped forward alone. He was taller than she'd anticipated from the hologram, with broad shoulders and eyes the color of Celidia's smallest moon, a warm amber that seemed to catch the artificial light. "Ambassador Voss," he said, bowing slightly in what she recognized as a gesture of respect rather than subservience. "Welcome to Harmony Station. I hope your journey was comfortable." His directness surprised her. No flowery diplomatic speech, no obvious mockery. She answered cautiously, The journey was adequate, Commander Hawthorne. Please call me Darius, he said, a curious expression crossing his features. I understand we're to be married according to the treaty specifications. So he did understand the farce. Telara felt a small measure of relief. Indeed, a symbolic union between our peoples. She emphasized symbolic, watching for his reaction. But Darius simply nodded. I've arranged quarters for you with all the environmental modifications our engineers could manage. I hope they'll be comfortable. As he escorted her through the station, Telara was struck by how differently he carried himself compared to the caricature of humans her people had painted. He was knowledgeable about Celidian biology, having ensured the quarters were equipped with the proper atmospheric mixture and lighting frequencies her species required. The ceremony is scheduled for 3 days from now, he informed her as they reached her quarters. I thought you might appreciate time to adjust to the station's cycle. I'll have meals delivered that should be compatible with your digestive system. You seem well informed about Celidians, she observed suspiciously. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. I requested the assignment, Ambassador. I've spent the last 6 months studying your people's publicly available biological and cultural data. This revelation stunned her. You requested this arrangement. I requested to be the liaison to the Celidian consortium. The marriage aspect was a diplomatic addition. Something flickered across his face, embarrassment perhaps. But if we're to present a united front, I thought it best to be prepared. Over the following days, Darius proved consistently considerate. He arranged a tour of the station that accommodated her sensitivity to certain frequencies of sound. He asked thoughtful questions about Celidian culture without the condescension she had expected. When she mentioned a traditional meditation practice, he cleared his schedule to provide her with the appropriate time and space. The wedding ceremony itself was a surprisingly subdued affair. Darius had researched Celidian bonding rituals and incorporated elements that wouldn't violate her cultural taboos. He recited his vows with what appeared to be genuine respect. I offer partnership and understanding between our worlds, he said, his voice steady as he placed a ceremonial band on her wrist, modified to accommodate her physiological differences. That night in the privacy of their shared quarters, a political necessity she had dreaded, Darius surprised her again. I've prepared separate sleeping quarters, he explained, showing her a room adjacent to his own. I understand Celidians require solitude during rest cycles. You don't expect consummation, she asked bluntly, prepared for the worst. His face flushed with color, an interesting physiological response. Ambassador Telara, this arrangement is diplomatic. I would never presume. He paused, regaining composure. My role is to build trust between our peoples, nothing more. As she settled into her private quarters that night, Telara found herself confused by the human commander. Where was the primitive she had been warned about? The brute who would either mock or desire her. Instead, she had found someone who treated her with more dignity than her own people had in sending her here. It was unexpected. Weeks passed on Harmony Station, and Telara found her carefully constructed prejudices crumbling. Darius had established a routine that respected her needs while gradually introducing her to human culture. Their mornings began with shared meals, he eating his human food, she consuming her nutrient solutions, during which they discussed everything from interstellar politics to art forms unique to their respective species. I don't understand why humans create visual representations of things that already exist, Telara remarked one morning, examining a painting of Earth's ocean that hung in their quarters. The ocean simply is. Why duplicate it? Instead of dismissing her question, Darius considered it thoughtfully. Perhaps because we see beauty differently each time we look. The painting captures not just the ocean, but how someone felt experiencing it. Such exchanges became frequent. Telara found herself genuinely interested in his perspectives, which approached problems differently than the rigid logical frameworks of Celidian thought. During a diplomatic function in the station's central garden, Telara overheard 2 human delegates discussing her. Poor Hawthorne, one whispered, stuck with the Ice Queen. Political marriages are barbaric. I hear they don't even touch, the other replied with a smirk. Probably for the best, who knows what those tentacles do. Rage flared within her, not at the insult to herself, but at their dismissal of Darius's kindness. Before she could respond, Darius appeared at her side, placing himself protectively between her and the gossipers. "Ambassador," he said loudly enough for them to hear, "would you honor me with a demonstration of that Celidian dance you mentioned? I've been fascinated since you described it." The request surprised her, but she recognized his intention to silence the rumors. What surprised her more was her own eager response. "I would be pleased to, though I lack a partner familiar with the movements." "I'm a quick study," he replied with a smile that created an unexpected warmth in her chest. That night in their quarters, she taught him the dance of celestial alignment, a traditional Celidian art form never before shared with humans. His movements were initially clumsy, his body moving differently than her own, but his determination was unmistakable. When their hands connected during a pivotal movement, the first deliberate physical contact between them, neither pulled away. The touch lingered, her iridescent skin casting patterns of light across his human features. "Your people believe we're inferior," Darius said softly, not releasing her hand. "And mine think your kind is coldly inhuman, yet here we are." "Here we are," she agreed, feeling something shift between them. The following weeks brought more discoveries. Darius shared human music that somehow resonated with her despite her different auditory structure. She taught him Celidian mathematical poetry, watching in fascination as he grasped concepts her people believed beyond human comprehension. During a diplomatic crisis involving a third species, they worked seamlessly together, her analytical precision complementing his intuitive problem-solving. Afterward, station personnel remarked on their effective partnership. "People are starting to believe our arrangement is genuine," Darius noted as they returned to their quarters. Taylera paused before answering. "Perhaps it has become so in its own way." The surprise in his eyes gave way to something deeper. That night, when they reached the door to her separate sleeping chamber, she hesitated. "The Celidian need for solitude during rest cycles," she began carefully, "is somewhat exaggerated in our diplomatic materials." Darius's pulse visibly quickened at her neck. "Is that so?" "Indeed, in fact, bonded Celidians often share healing resonances during rest." She met his eyes directly. "Would you like me to demonstrate?" His smile was answer enough as she led him into her quarters for the first time. That night, boundaries between their species, physical and emotional, began to dissolve in ways neither had imagined possible. The message from the Celidian High Council arrived precisely on schedule, 6 months into Taylera's diplomatic marriage. Elder Nimvar's holographic form shimmered before her, tendrils arranged in the formal pattern of authority. "Your rotation is complete, Ambassador Voss. Return to Celidia for debriefing within 3 standard cycles. We anticipate your intelligence on human military capabilities." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Taylera staring at empty space. She had known this moment would come, yet the finality struck her with unexpected force. Darius found her hours later, still seated in the communication chamber. Without words, he knelt before her, taking her hands in his, a gesture that had become natural between them. "You're being recalled," he stated simply. "Yes. When do you leave?" 3 cycles." She met his gaze, seeing the same conflict reflected in his amber eyes that she felt within herself. "I was sent here as a joke, Darius. My assignment was to endure this marriage as a form of political theater while gathering intelligence on your species' weaknesses." If she expected anger or betrayal from this confession, she found none. Instead, he nodded slowly. "I suspected as much. The Celidian reputation for superiority is well documented." His thumbs traced patterns across her iridescent skin. "And what intelligence have you gathered for your superiors?" She lifted her chin. "That they are profoundly wrong about humans, about you. That what they consider weakness I now recognize as strength, emotional intelligence, adaptability, compassion." Their months together had transformed them both. Taylera had learned to embrace the emotional aspects of existence that Celidians disdained, while Darius had adopted elements of her people's precise thinking and cosmic perspective. Their differences had become complementary rather than divisive. "I don't want to return," she admitted, the words feeling like liberation. "But refusing would mean exile from my homeworld." Darius stood, pulling her up with him. "Then I'll go with you." "That's impossible. The council would never." "Not to stay," he clarified. to stand beside you when you tell them your decision, whatever it may be. That night, their coupling held a new intensity, the possibility of separation lending urgency to every touch, every whispered word. Telara's bioluminescence pulsed in patterns that matched Darius's heartbeat, their bodies finding harmony despite biological differences. Afterward, as they lay entwined, Telara placed Darius's hand on her abdomen. "There's something you should know," she whispered. "Something I only confirmed yesterday." His eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Is that even possible between our species?" "Apparently so." Her inner eyelids blinked rapidly, a sign of emotional intensity among her people. "Our geneticists believed Celidians and humans could never reproduce, but it seems they underestimated our compatibility." The wonder in his expression melted into joy. "A child, our child." "Yes." His arms tightened around her. "Now you have to make a choice." She shook her head. "I already have. I choose you, this life we've created together." Her tendrils curled in determination. "But I must return to Celidia once more, not as a joke bride completing her shameful assignment, but as a Celidian who demands respect for her chosen mate and their child." 3 days later, as they boarded the transport to Celidia, Darius squeezed her hand. "Whatever happens, we face it together," he promised. Telara nodded, her free hand resting protectively over their growing child. Together. The crystalline spires of Celidia's capital city gleamed under the dual suns as Telara and Darius stepped from the transport. A delegation awaited them, not the welcoming party she might have once received as a returning noble, but a minimal diplomatic escort led by Illyri, her former companion. "The council is surprised by your companion," Illyri said, her tendrils twitching nervously as she led them toward the great hall. "They expected you alone." "My husband accompanies me," Telara replied, deliberately using the human term. She stood taller now, her iridescent skin glowing with the distinctive pattern of early pregnancy, a luminescence impossible to hide among her people. Illyri's multiple eyes darted to Telara's abdomen, widening in shock. "Is that? But that's not possible." "Evidently it is," Darius said calmly, his hand steady on Telara's back. The great hall fell silent as they entered. The High Council members sat elevated on their crystalline platforms, tendrils rigid with displeasure. Elder Nimvar's voice cut through the silence. "Ambassador Voss, you are not authorized to bring the human to our homeworld." "Commander Hawthorne," Telara corrected firmly, "is my bondmate and the father of my child. He comes as my equal." The ripple of movement through the chamber was no longer suppressed laughter, but shock and disbelief. Elder Nimvar descended from her platform, approaching to examine Telara more closely, her sensor tendrils extending involuntarily. "Impossible," she whispered, but the evidence of Telara's pregnancy patterns was undeniable. "What began as your mockery has become something profound," Telara announced, projecting her voice to reach every corner of the hall. "You sent me as a joke, but I return with a miracle, the first child of two worlds." Darius stepped forward. "We come not seeking your approval, but to inform you of a new reality. Our child represents possibilities your preconceptions blinded you to." The council chambers erupted in chaotic discussion, some elders demanding genetic verification, others calling for immediate separation of the abomination. Through it all, Telara and Darius remained calmly united, their hands linked in the human gesture that had come to mean everything to them. Finally, Elder Vitter, the most progressive of the council, raised his tendrils for silence. "If what you claim is true, the implications are significant." His voice carried the weight of scientific curiosity. "Our species' compatibility would necessitate a re-examination of our biological understanding and our place in the galaxy." "Precisely," Telara agreed. "And I propose to lead that re-examination, not as your joke ambassador, but as a genuine bridge between our worlds." In the days that followed, Celidian scientists confirmed what Telara already knew. She carried a viable hybrid child, the first of its kind. What began as scandal transformed into scientific fascination and eventually cautious diplomatic opportunity. 6 months later, as Telara gave birth in a medical facility specifically designed for her unique pregnancy, both Celidian and human medical teams stood witness. The child, a daughter with iridescent patches across human-like skin and eyes that shifted between amber and the luminous blue of Salidia's waters, represented something neither world had imagined possible. "What shall we name her?" Darius asked, cradling their daughter with a tenderness that still moved Telara deeply. Telara touched the child's cheek, watching the responsive glow that followed her finger. "Harmony," she suggested, "after the station where we found each other." Outside the medical facility, representatives from both species gathered, no longer separated by contempt and mockery, but united in wonder at what could happen when prejudice gave way to possibility. The joke bride had returned triumphant, carrying not shame but the future, a child who would belong fully to both worlds and to neither, a new beginning that no one had foreseen. Except, perhaps, for a human commander who had requested an assignment no one else wanted, and a Salidian woman who had discovered that love was neither primitive nor weak, but the strongest force in any galaxy.